My name is Colin Mercer, and I am 68 years old. I spent most of my life as a civil design consultant, the kind of man who triple-checks every blueprint before signing anything. Maybe that's why the shock hit me so hard, because I know what it looks like when someone tries to slip a signature past you. I was sitting at my dining table in Redwood Harbor, Washington, finishing a simple lunch of grilled vegetables and rice, when my son Evan and his wife Talia walked in carrying a thick folder. They didn't sit. They didn't talk about the weather or the grandkids. Talia simply placed the folder in front of me like she was delivering court summons. "We finally closed on the house," she announced, her voice bright but her eyes steely. $900,000, a real investment. I looked at Evan, searching his face for some sign of excitement or joy. Instead, he glanced away, ashamed or angry. I couldn't tell which. Talia tapped the folder. "Your gift letter is inside. We need your signature so the lender clears the funds." I frowned. "Gift letter?" "Yes," she said, smiling too widely. "The letter where you confirm you're giving us the down payment. They already attached your name. You just need to sign." Attached my name. Without asking. Without even talking to me. I opened the folder and sure enough, on the second page, my full legal name was printed at the bottom. The signature line was blank, but everything else was filled out as if I had already agreed. "This isn't happening," I said quietly. Evan stiffened. "Dad, come on. You know we're counting on this." "You never asked me," I replied. "You didn't even hint at it. And $900,000? You two can't expect me to fund a house I've never seen." Talia's smile vanished. "Your family. You should want to help." I closed the folder. My answer is no. For a moment, neither of them moved. The room felt colder, tighter, like someone had shut all the windows at once. Talia spoke first. "Then we'll do what we have to do." I didn't understand what she meant until 3 days later, when an envelope arrived from a law firm in Seattle. Inside was a lawsuit filed against me for $900,000, claiming I reneged on a written financial commitment, caused extreme emotional distress, MOTS, and was exhibiting signs of diminished mental competence. My own son, suing me for $900,000. Before I tell you what happened next, subscribe to the channel and let me know in the comments what time it is where you're watching from. It helps more than you know. I sat at my kitchen table with the lawsuit in my hands, rereading each accusation. According to them, I had promised, in writing, to fund their home purchase. They included screenshots of text messages they themselves had crafted, messages that looked like I had agreed, but I knew I never sent. But the worst part wasn't the forged messages. It was the statement claiming I was no longer capable of making sound financial decisions and required legal oversight. The same son whose homework I helped with, whose first car I bought, whose wedding I paid for, now saying I was incompetent. The world spun for a moment, and I felt my heart pound behind my ribs like a muffled drum. I picked up the phone and called my attorney, Levi Caro, a man I've trusted for over 3 decades. He answered on the second ring. "Colin? I've been expecting your call. I received a copy of the lawsuit. What do I do, Levi?" "First," he said calmly, "you breathe. Second, you come to my office tomorrow. Third," he paused, "we prepare for the hearing. And trust me, their case won't survive one simple question." "What question?" "You'll hear it in court." After the call, I needed to clear my mind. I walked into the garage where an old wooden stool sat under my workbench. I had been refinishing that stool for weeks. Sanding, staining, trying to breathe new life into something worn down by time. I ran my hands over the smooth wood. Funny how some things could be restored with enough patience, and others could fall apart in a single afternoon. I thought the lawsuit was the worst of it, until the next day when I discovered the single document Talia had hidden in that folder, the one detail that would turn this family dispute into a full-blown war. I didn't sleep much that night. My mind kept circling the same impossible truth. My own son had filed a lawsuit against me for $900,000, and the woman he married was the architect behind every piece of it. Betrayal has a weight to it, a real physical heaviness. It settles in your ribs and makes your heartbeat feel louder, like your body is trying to process something your mind refuses to accept. By morning, the world outside my house looked normal. Birds chirped. A jogger passed by my driveway. A neighbor across the street dragged his trash bin to the curb, yet none of it felt normal to me. Every simple sound carried a strange, muted echo like I was listening from underwater. I showered, dressed, and drove to my attorney's office in downtown Briarstead, a quiet little riverside city a half-hour south of where I lived. The streets were wet from an early drizzle and the sky was a dull slate gray. Good weather for bad news, I thought. Levi Caro's office was on the second floor of a converted mill building. Brick exterior, iron-framed windows, the kind of place with charm but no parking. I stepped inside, nodded at the receptionist, and followed the familiar corridor to Levi's office. He was already standing behind his desk when I walked in, glasses perched low on his nose, a thick case file open in front of him. "Colin," he said, motioning me to sit. "We need to talk about the documents your son submitted." I figured as much. I sighed. He slid a printed packet across the desk. "I've reviewed everything. Their claim rests on two key elements: the gift letter you refused to sign and a separate document you probably haven't seen yet." My stomach tightened. "Separate document?" Levi's jaw clenched. "Yes, and it is troubling." I opened the packet. The first few pages were the lawsuit itself. Accusations, financial breakdowns, and a wildly exaggerated description of my supposed declining mental state. But on the fourth page, I saw something I had never laid eyes on before. A document titled, "Conditional Support Agreement, Mercer Family Housing." My breath caught. It was dated 8 months earlier, and under supporting party, my full legal name was typed neatly, followed by a digital signature that did not belong to me. The strokes were wrong. The angle was wrong. Even the spacing was wrong. "They forged my signature," I whispered. "They did more than that," Levi replied. "They created a fictional agreement claiming you promised to provide ongoing financial assistance for any housing purchase your son's family made." I stared at the page, disbelief turning slowly into something hotter. Fury. "They're claiming I signed this," I said. "Yes," Levi confirmed. "And this document is the backbone of their argument. Without it, the case falls apart." I shook my head. "Levi, why would they think they could get away with something this blatant?" Levi leaned back in his chair. "Because, Colin, this wasn't just your son or Talia. Someone else drafted this document. Someone who knows how to manipulate legal language just enough to confuse a lender." My pulse stumbled. "Who? We don't know yet. But whoever it is, they coached your daughter-in-law. Every phrase in that agreement is crafted to sound plausible enough to pass a preliminary review." I rubbed my temple. "So they forged a document, then sued me based on it." Levi nodded grimly. "Exactly. And now comes the real problem. The hearing is in 2 weeks, and they are pushing aggressively." "Why?" "That," he said, sliding another paper toward me, "is what we need to talk about next." It was a notice from their attorney. A request for expedited judgment, meaning Evan and Talia didn't just want the money, they wanted it fast. Levi folded his hands. "Colin, something is wrong on their end. People do desperate things when they're cornered. Before we walk into court, we need to know what kind of pressure they're under." I exhaled slowly. "What are you suggesting?" "We dig," he said simply. "Every stone, every financial trail, every document. There's more here than a greedy couple in a fancy house." I looked down at the forged signature again. My own name, signed by a stranger. "Levi?" I asked quietly. "Yes? What if they actually believe they can win?" He gave me a long, somber look. "Then we make sure they don't." I closed the packet, my fingers trembling slightly. "They think I'm weak." "No," Levi corrected. "They think you're alone." The words hit harder than I expected. I had spent a lifetime providing for my son, teaching him responsibility, supporting him through every hardship, believing in him even when he made poor choices. And now, he believed the quickest path to wealth was tearing me apart in court. I stood. "Tell me what you need from me." "Everything," Levi said. "Every detail, every memory, every conversation, because the only way to defeat a lie this big is to expose the truth beneath it." I nodded slowly. "Then, let's begin." But we hadn't even scratched the surface yet. I thought the forged agreement was the worst part, until Levi discovered a financial trail that exposed exactly why Evan and Talia needed $900,000. and who had been pushing them from the shadows. I sat across from Levi as he typed rapid notes into his laptop, his brows pulled together in the way they do when he's assembling a puzzle. I had seen that look before, usually on complicated estate cases or messy real estate disputes, but never on something involving me, never on something involving my own son. "Colin," he said, stopping mid-sentence, "there is a pattern here, and once we see the pattern, we will understand the motive." I nodded slowly. "Where do we start?" "With the house," he said. "The one they bought. They told me it was $900,000. "It was," he confirmed. "But here's what troubles me. Your son and daughter-in-law only reported a fraction of the income needed to qualify. Even with a lender willing to stretch the rules, it doesn't add up." I leaned back, stunned. "Then how did they get approved?" "That," he said, tapping the forged agreement, "is what got them over the line. Your agreement as the financial backer." My stomach twisted. I could feel the betrayal more acutely now, like a bruise spreading deeper with every revelation. "So the moment I refused to sign, everything unraveled for them," I murmured. Levi nodded. "But that still doesn't explain the urgency. Why an expedited judgment? Why $900,000? Why claim emotional damages on top of that?" He turned his monitor toward me and clicked open a document. "This," he said, "is your son's financial activity over the last year." I stared at the screen. Numbers, transactions, withdrawals. But then one entry caught my eye. A single massive payment, one that made no sense. "Levi, what is that?" "That," he said quietly, "is a private loan. $60,000, taken 6 months ago from a lender named Marcel Dorian." The name meant nothing to me, but Levi's expression said everything. "Should I know who that is?" I asked. "No," Levi replied, "but your son knows, and he shouldn't. Dorian isn't a bank. He's not even a licensed lender. He's what you'd call a quiet operator, the kind of man who gives money to people in trouble with the understanding that repayment comes with pressure, interest, and consequences." Ice crawled down my spine. "And Evan went to him?" I whispered. "He did," Levi confirmed, "and that loan is past due." I rubbed my temples, trying to process it. "So they're being threatened. In a word, yes. And based on the timing, the urgency, and the forged documents, I'd say Dorian is applying that pressure aggressively." Swallowed hard, my throat tight. "So the lawsuit, it's not about me, it's about them trying to survive." Levi folded his hands. "Colin, people under financial threat often do desperate things, but forging your name, lying to the court, and accusing you of incompetence, that goes far beyond desperation." I stared at the forged agreement again. My name, written like a weapon, my integrity used as collateral. "What do we do now?" I asked. "We need to confirm whether this Dorian is directly involved," Levi said. "And if he is, then this isn't just a civil suit. This becomes a case of coercion, fraud, and possible criminal influence." I exhaled shakily. "Should we be worried about him coming after me?" Levi paused. And that pause told me more than any answer could. "Colin," he said carefully, "I want you to be cautious. This man does not operate like a typical creditor. If he thinks you are standing between him and his money, he might try to intimidate you. He might reach out. He might—" I raised a hand. "I understand, but I didn't. Not truly. Not until later." Levi tapped the desk. "Our next step is to gather evidence. Emails, messages, dates, everything. And Colin, do not speak to your son or daughter-in-law, not yet." "I wasn't planning to," I said quietly. He gave me a sympathetic look. "I know this is difficult, but we can win this." Win. That word felt strange, even inappropriate. This wasn't a game or a match. This was my family. I left his office with the case file tucked under my arm, stepping into the drizzle. The cool air hit my face, grounding me for a moment. Cars passed by. People walked their dogs, and everything around me looked perfectly normal. But nothing felt normal anymore. When I reached my car, I sat for a moment, gripping the steering wheel. A memory surfaced. Evan at 8 years old, asking me to help him with a school project, promising he'd take responsibility, but inevitably handing it off to me the night before it was due. He always wanted someone else to fix things. And now, at 30-something, he wanted me to fix his entire life, or pay for it when I refused. I put the car in gear and drove home. But as I pulled into my street, I noticed something immediately. A black sedan, unfamiliar, parked across the road, engine off, windows tinted, but angled directly toward my driveway. Watching, my chest tightened. Whatever pressure Evan was under, though it had found its way to my doorstep. I didn't know who was inside that black sedan. Not then, but by nightfall, I would learn that Evan and Talia's debt wasn't just overdue. It came with a deadline, and the man enforcing it was already closer than I ever imagined. The black sedan didn't move, not an inch. I sat in my own car for nearly a minute, gripping the steering wheel, watching the silhouette inside that vehicle through the sheen of drizzle on my windshield. The figure was just a blur, a shape behind tinted glass, patient, motionless, unmistakably intentional. My first instinct was denial. Maybe a neighbor's guest, maybe a contractor, maybe nothing. But my gut whispered the truth. Nothing about this was random. I exhaled slowly, stepped out of my car, and walked toward my front door with a calmness I did not feel. The keys trembled slightly in my hand. Before going inside, I glanced once more over my shoulder. The sedan's headlights flicked on for a split second, then off. A warning, a signal, a reminder. They knew I saw them. Inside my house, I locked the door immediately. Something I had never done in daylight. I stood in the entryway, listening to the emptiness of my home. The quiet hum of the refrigerator, the faint tick of the wall clock. For a man who spent his life fixing foundations, structural beams, and load-bearing walls, it was strange how vulnerable a home could feel when the threat wasn't physical, but human. I set the case file on my kitchen counter and opened Levi's packet again. My eyes kept drifting back to the forged signature. My name, my identity, my trust. A knock jolted me, sharp, unexpected. Too soon for anyone to be stopping by. I froze. Another knock, harder. I forced myself to breathe and approached the door silently. Through the peephole, I saw no one. Just the drizzle, the empty porch, and the black sedan across the street. Still there, still watching. The knock had come from the side door, not the front. My heart pounded. I stepped quietly to the hallway and peeked toward the side entrance. A slip of white paper had been shoved under the door. No envelope, just a folded sheet. I picked it up with cautious fingers and unfolded it slowly. A handwritten message stared back at me. "Tell your son time is up." My stomach dropped. Beneath the note was a phone number. No name, no instructions, just pressure, the kind Levi warned me about. I pulled out my phone and dialed Levi immediately. He answered on the second ring. "Colin, everything okay? There's someone outside my house," I whispered. "A car, a note. It says, tell my son time is up." Silence on the line. A heavy, measured silence. "Levi," I said, "what do I do?" "You do nothing," he said firmly. "Do not call them out number. Do not go outside to confront anyone. I need you to stay inside, keep your doors locked, and send me a picture of the note immediately." I took a photo and texted it to him. When he called me back, his voice was lower, edged with caution. "Colin, this handwriting, I've seen it before." My pulse accelerated. "Where?" "On a separate case, years ago. A private lender coercion situation. And if it's the same man, he is not someone you want anywhere near your home." "Dorian?" I whispered. Levi exhaled shakily. "Yes, Marcel Dorian." I sat down at the table, feeling the weight of the world press against my ribs. "What does he want from me?" "He wants what he's owed," Levi said. "And he believes Evan's debt is now your responsibility." I clenched my jaw. "But it's not." "Legally? Absolutely not. But men like him don't rely on legalities. They rely on fear." "Fear. Yes, that part was easy." "Levi," I asked quietly, "is he dangerous?" "Yes," Levi answered without hesitation. "But he's calculated. He pushes just hard enough to scare someone into paying before any violence becomes necessary. He uses intimidation as leverage. Does he know where I live?" "He does now," Levi replied grimly. "And that's exactly why the next steps are critical." I swallowed. "What next steps?" "We're filing an emergency motion with the court," he explained. "Once the judge sees the forgery and the timeline, we can argue that this lawsuit is an abuse of process driven by external coercion." "Will that stop him?" Levi hesitated. "It will give us leverage. It may slow him down, but it won't make him disappear." My mind raced. What about Evan? Should I talk to him? No, Levi said immediately. He's already made choices that put you at risk. Talking to him now, when he's desperate, could make things worse. I closed my eyes and leaned back, feeling the exhaustion settle into my bones. Levi, what if they show up again? Then you call me, he said, and you call the police if you feel threatened. But for now, stay inside. Stay alert. I hung up the phone, walked to the window, and peeked through the blinds. The sedan was gone, vanished, as if it had never been there. But I knew better. That car wasn't a coincidence. It was a warning shot, and it meant something far worse was coming. I thought Dorian's message was the true threat, but that afternoon Evan showed up in person, and what he confessed shattered everything I believed about why they wanted my money in the first place. Evan hadn't knocked on my door in months, not for holidays, not for birthdays, not even when his own daughter won her school award. So when I heard his car pull into my driveway that afternoon, gravel crunching beneath the tires, a heaviness settled in my chest. I stayed still for a moment, listening from the hallway. His footsteps were uneven, rushed, the kind of walk a man has when he's holding a truth too heavy to carry. He didn't wait for me to open the door. He just came in. "Dad," he called out, voice tight. "Dad, we need to talk." I stepped out slowly, keeping my expression blank. "I wasn't expecting you." He blinked, startled by my calmness. He looked older than he should have, stubble on his jaw, dark circles under his eyes, hair a mess like he hadn't slept in days. He swallowed hard. Can I sit?" "Go ahead," I said. We sat at the dining table where so many family meals used to happen. Now the air between us felt more like a negotiation chamber than a home. For a moment he just stared at his hands. His fingers trembled slightly. "Dad," he stopped, took a breath, started again. "I didn't know Dorian would come after you." My blood chilled. "So the sedan was him?" Evan nodded weakly. "He told me he'd give me time. He told me he'd only come after me, not my family." I leaned back, studying him. "Evan, you brought him to my door the moment you forged that document. The moment you filed that lawsuit." His eyes flinched, guilt flashing across his face. "I didn't forge it," he whispered. I paused. He continued. "Talia did." I sat up straighter. "Your wife forged my signature?" He nodded again, shame washing over him. "She said it was the only way to get the house. Said lenders needed it. Said everyone does it. And I believed her. I shouldn't have, I know that. But I didn't do the signature myself." A hollow laugh escaped me. "You didn't stop her either." He closed his eyes. "I know." For a moment neither of us spoke. The rain outside softened to a faint patter, the house settling into the kind of quiet that reveals too many truths at once. I folded my hands. "Why 900,000? Why that exact number?" Evan looked away. "Because," he said, voice barely audible, "that's how much we owe now." The floor seemed to tilt under me. $900,000. "Evan, how? Why?" He rubbed his face, defeated. "It wasn't just the house, Dad. We renovated. We furnished. Talia insisted. Said the neighborhood required a certain look. And then Dorian came in when we were short on cash. He made it sound easy. Short-term loan, quick fix. But the interest doubled, then doubled again. My heart sank. "Evan, why didn't you come to me before it got this bad?" He laughed bitterly. "Because you would have said no, and I was right to," I replied sharply. "Evan, you let your wife drag you into debt with a man who operates like a shadow. You let her forge documents in my name. And then you sued me to bail you out." His shoulders collapsed inward like he was shrinking under the weight of his own choices. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I didn't want to hurt you, but we're drowning, Dad. And Talia, she's scared. She says if we don't pay Dorian soon, he'll come after us." "He already has," I said quietly. "You saw the car." Evan swallowed. "I know." And he said something else. Something worse. I tensed. "What?" "He told me," Evan said with trembling lips, "that if the court doesn't rule in our favor, then you'll be the one responsible for the debt, whether you signed anything or not." I stared at him, stunned. "He can't legally do that." "I know," Evan whispered, "but he doesn't care." A knot tightened in my chest. "Is that why the lawsuit was rushed? Is that why you lied about my mental state?" His silence was the answer. I stood, unable to sit any longer. Evan, you didn't just betray me. You put me directly in this man's line of fire. I know, he said, tears forming. And I'm sorry, but Dad, what if this is the only way to survive? I turned to him slowly. Then you're on a sinking ship, son. And instead of grabbing a life vest, you tried to throw me overboard to stay afloat. He flinched like I had struck him. I pointed to the door. You need to leave, right now. He hesitated. Dad, go, I said hollow. Before I say something I can't take back. He stood shakily, walked to the door, hesitated again, then left without another word. When the door closed behind him, a silence deeper than grief settled into my home. For the first time I understood the truth. This wasn't just a lawsuit. This was survival. And Dorian had placed the target squarely on my back. But the real shock came 2 days later, when someone far more dangerous than Dorian walked into Levi's office, claiming to represent my son's interests and demanding a meeting with me. Levi called me early that morning, earlier than he ever had. His tone was clipped, uneasy. The kind of voice a man uses when he's preparing you for a storm. Colin, he said, I need you to come to my office today. Right away, my pulse tightened. What happened? A representative came by, not from Dorian directly, but someone who works for him. And this individual wasn't shy about what he wanted. What did he say? I asked, bracing myself. Levi hesitated. He wants a meeting with you. In person, soon. I felt the chill move up my spine. Why me? That, Levi said, is what we need to discuss. I arrived at his office later that morning. The building's old wooden floors creaked under my steps, and every footfall felt heavier than the last. When I entered Levi's office, he didn't sit. He stood by the window, arms folded, staring out at the gray river that snaked through downtown Briarstead. Colin, he said without turning around, this is going to be complicated. I set my coat on the spare chair. Start from the beginning. He finally turned, and the solemn look in his eyes made my chest tighten. The man's name is Anton Vale. The name landed with a soft thud, unfamiliar but ominous. Never heard of him, I said. You're not supposed to, Levi replied. Anton's a broker, a fixer. He handles the debts Dorian doesn't want his name attached to. He's the kind of person people hire when intimidation fails and persuasion needs a firmer hand. I felt my jaw stiffen. He threatened you? Not directly, Levi said slowly, but he made it clear that unless we cooperate, Dorian will escalate. I rubbed the bridge of my nose. What exactly does he want? A conversation, Levi answered. With you. Privately. No attorneys. I scoffed. Not happening. Levi nodded. Good. Because it should not happen, but Colin, this is now a pressure game. They know your son is in too deep. They know you're the stable one, the one with assets, the one who can pay. I won't, I said sharply. I refuse. And you should, Levi replied. But understand, refusing puts you in a dangerous place. I exhaled hard. What are our options? We fight the lawsuit in court, Levi said. We expose the forgery. We reveal Evan and Talia's financial mess. We document Dorian's involvement. But will that stop them? I asked. Levi shook his head. It'll get the legal system on your side. But men like Dorian don't bow to judges, they bow to leverage. And I don't have leverage, I murmured. A silence settled between us. Heavy, metallic. Levi crossed the room, opened a drawer and pulled out a folder. I didn't want to show you this yet, he said. But you need to see it. He handed it to me. Inside were photos, grainy surveillance shots from a parking garage. In them, Evan stood talking to a man whose face was half hidden by shadows. Tall, well-dressed, wearing a charcoal coat, but his stance, the cut of his jaw, the coldness in his posture, it was unmistakably Anton Vale. My breath caught. Evan met with him? Levi nodded. Twice, both within the last 2 weeks. The room tilted. My son, my only child, had not only taken money from a predatory lender, he had negotiated with the man's fixer. Colin, Levi said softly. Your son promised them something. I swallowed hard. What? We don't know, Levi said. But whatever it was, it involved you. The words sank like stones in my gut. I dropped into the chair. My hands trembled slightly as I held the photos. He told them I would pay, I whispered. Yes, Levi said. And when you refused, they turned the screws. My heart felt like it cracked inside my chest. I had raised Evan with every ounce of love I had, supported him through failures, through heartbreaks, through his fumbling attempts to build a life, and somewhere along the way, he had traded my trust for a chance at easy money. So what do I do now? I asked. Levi sat across from me. First, we prepare for court. Second, we file a protective motion against harassment. Third, he paused. Third, you stay vigilant, because Anton didn't just show up for a friendly chat, and he didn't walk into my office for nothing. My voice broke slightly. You think he'll come to my house? I think, Levi said gravely, that he already has. A cold wave swept through me as the memory resurfaced. The black sedan, the headlights, the note. Levi, I said quietly. He left a message for me. Levi's face tightened. What did it say? I pulled the folded note from my pocket and placed it on the desk. Tell your son time is up. Levi closed his eyes for a moment. Colin, this is bigger than a lawsuit now. I nodded slowly. I know, but nothing. Not Anton's threats, not the forged documents, not even the lawsuit, prepared me for the moment Talia herself showed up at my door, sobbing, shaking, and begging me to save them from what was coming next. I hadn't expected to see Talia again, at least not outside a courtroom. So when the doorbell rang that evening and I opened the door to find her standing on my porch, drenched from the rain, mascara streaked down her cheeks, shoulders shaking like a frightened child, I froze. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Then she whispered, Colin, please. I didn't know where else to go. Her voice was trembling so violently it barely resembled the sharp, polished tone she always used around me. She looked broken, not angry, not manipulative, truly terrified. I stepped aside. Come in. She staggered into the living room, dripping water onto the rug, wrapping her arms around herself as if she were trying to hold her ribs together. She didn't sit until I motioned to the sofa. I'm not here to cause trouble, she said quickly. I swear. I'm here because Evan won't listen to me anymore, and Dorian... Her breath caught and she covered her mouth. I sat across from her, my chest tight. Talia, start from the beginning. She wiped at her eyes with trembling fingers. Evan thinks he can talk his way out of this. He thinks the lawsuit will fix everything, that you'll crack before the hearing and just pay. I shook my head. That is not happening. I know, she whispered. I know that now. But Evan, he's desperate. He's not sleeping, he's not eating, and he's started telling lies even to himself. I leaned forward. Why did you forge my signature? Her face crumpled. Because I really thought we could manage it. The mortgage, the renovations, all of it. I thought the house would appraise higher. I thought we'd flip it within a year. I thought I was doing something smart. A harsh laugh escaped her. It wasn't humor. It was regret. But then the costs exploded and Evan kept spending. And when things started slipping out of our control, he went to Dorian, and I let him. I didn't stop him. I didn't understand who we were getting involved with. I felt anger and pity battling inside me. You knew you were lying to me. You knew you were putting me at risk. I know. Her voice cracked. I know, Colin, and I am sorry. I swear I am. But there's something else you need to know, something Evan won't admit. My breath stalled. She glanced toward the windows as if expecting someone to appear. Dorian isn't the one pushing Evan now. I stiffened. What do you mean? She lowered her voice to a whisper. It's Anton. My skin went cold. Anton Vale? I asked. She nodded violently. He's not just some debt collector, Colin. He's invested in the house. Personally. He put money into it expecting a return. Evan agreed to a deal he didn't understand. What kind of deal? A profit split, she said. Anton gets a percentage when the property sells, but because the renovations stalled, Anton lost patience. And now he wants his money another way, I said. Yes, she whispered. He wants the $900,000, all of it. And he told Evan that if the lawsuit fails or if you refuse to settle before the hearing, he'll consider it a direct attack. On who? I asked, though I already felt the dread circling. She swallowed hard. On you. The room felt smaller. The air felt heavier. Talia's fear had weight, substance, too real to be manufactured. Colin, she said, reaching out as if to touch my arm before stopping herself. I came here because Anton isn't just threatening us anymore. He's threatening you, and Evan can't see it. He thinks Anton just wants to scare you. But I heard what he said when Evan wasn't in the room. My pulse thudded. What did he say? She squeezed her eyes shut. He said if you don't pay, you're the one who gets visited. Not Evan, not me. You. He said you're old enough that no one will question a fall. A chill ripped through me. She continued, voice shaking. I know Evan is wrong for what he did. I know I was wrong too, but Anton is dangerous. And he's not going to wait for the court date. I leaned back, feeling my chest tighten painfully. So why come to me? I asked quietly. Why now? Because Evan won't listen, she said. And because you deserve to know what's really coming. And because... Her voice softened. Because I'm scared he'll do something to you before any judge can help. The room fell silent. Outside, thunder rolled low across the sky. A warning in the darkness. Talia, I said finally. You and Evan need to leave that house. Tonight. She shook her head. We can't. Anton says we stay put until the hearing. He's watching us. And he's watching you. My breath caught. He knows where you live, Colin. He knows your routine. And he's already decided you're the easiest piece to move. But I didn't realize just how true that was. Until the next morning when I stepped onto my porch and found something sitting on my welcome mat that proved Anton wasn't bluffing. He had already been inside my home. I didn't sleep. Not after what Talia told me. The idea of a stranger. No, not just a stranger, a man like Anton. Walking around freely with my name in his mouth and my address in his pocket. It kept my heart pounding against my ribs long into the night. But nothing prepared me for what I found the next morning. I opened my front door just after sunrise, expecting the stillness of my usual routine. The cool air, the hum of the neighborhood waking up. Instead, I froze. Sitting neatly on my welcome mat was a small metal key attached to a flimsy tag with 2 handwritten words. To your basement. My basement. A key I did not own. A key I did not recognize. A key that meant someone had been inside my house without breaking a lock. A cold wave moved through me so fast I genuinely felt nauseous. My hands shook as I bent down to pick it up. The tag dangled slightly in the breeze. The lettering was sharp, straight, precise. Controlled handwriting. A man who did not rush. A man who knew exactly what message he intended to send. I backed into the house and locked the door. Every sound suddenly mattered. The hum of the refrigerator, the tick of the thermostat, the creak of a floorboard. My home no longer felt like my home. It felt like a place someone else had walked through, touched, examined, watched. I called Levi immediately. He answered in less than 2 rings. Colin, he's been inside the house, I whispered. Levi inhaled sharply. What do you mean? I told him about the key, the tag, the handwriting. There was a long silence on his end. Then he said, voice low and tight, Colin, listen to me carefully. You are not to stay in that house another night. It's my home, I murmured. I know, he said, but it's not safe. Not right now. I walked into the living room, glancing around at the old photographs of my late wife, the handmade shelf in the corner, the framed sketches from when Evan was a little boy, all pieces of a life I had built over decades. A life that suddenly felt paper thin. Levi, I said quietly, what do we do about the hearing? We use everything, he replied, the forged agreement, the coerced timeline, Talia's confession, the unusual loan, the intimidation. This is no longer a simple civil suit. This is a coordinated pressure tactic wrapped in a fraudulent lawsuit. Then he added, and I'm coming to get you. Right now. We'll prepare from my office. I agreed. Partly because he was right. Mostly because deep down I knew staying here was inviting disaster. While I waited, I paced the hallway, counting breaths, listening for footsteps outside. Thankfully, none came. When Levi arrived, we left swiftly, locking the door behind us. I told him about the sedan I had seen earlier in the week, and he didn't respond. Not because he didn't care, but because he already understood the implication. This was bigger than a lawsuit, bigger than a debt. This was organized pressure from a man who counted on fear to make people fold. At Levi's office, we spent hours assembling everything. Evidence, timelines, contradictions, forged signatures, financial trails. And as we prepared, Levi grew more certain. They overplayed their hand, he said. Anton wanted you scared. He didn't expect you to bring this into a courtroom with a judge who has zero tolerance for fraud. Finally, the day of the hearing arrived. The courtroom was quiet, cold and sterile, but it felt like the only place left where the truth could breathe. Evan and Talia sat across the aisle. Talia's face was pale, eyes red-rimmed, hands trembling. Evan looked hollowed out. Guilt, fear, and the crushing weight of consequences etched into every line of his face. Their attorney spoke first, presenting the lawsuit with false conviction. But when Levi rose to respond, the tone of the entire courtroom shifted. He laid out the forged document. He showed the digital signature inconsistencies. He presented the financial trail to the private lender. He exposed Dorian's involvement. He read Talia's own admission aloud. The judge's expression darkened with every page. When Levi finished, the judge turned to Evan and asked in a calm but pointed voice, "Mr. Mercer, can you explain why you filed a lawsuit based on an agreement your father never signed?" Evan's voice cracked. I thought he would help." "That," the judge replied sternly, "is not how the law works. Nor is intimidation, nor is fraud, nor is dragging an innocent man through court to cover your own debts." In the end, the ruling was swift. The lawsuit dismissed with prejudice. Evan and Talia were cautioned that further harassment would lead to criminal charges. Their forged document was turned over for investigation. I walked out of the courtroom exhausted, relieved and heartbroken all at once. Evan didn't look at me as I passed. Talia whispered, "I'm sorry," and Anton was nowhere to be seen, a fact that chilled me more than his presence. Outside, Levi walked beside me. "It's over," he said softly. But we both knew the truth. The courtroom battle was finished. Anton's reaction, whatever it would be, still lingered somewhere in the shadows. I took a long, steadying breath. "I'm still here," I said, and that was enough. And if you've been listening this far, subscribe to the channel and let me know in the comments what time it is where you're watching from. It helps more than you know.